Self-confidence. That's a word every man connects with his strength, abilities, and social status. But true self-confidence is not just about how much money you earn, how good you look, or how many achievements you can list. What Jung described as real inner strength is something deeper, subtler, and far more lasting. It is the ability to stand firmly in your own skin, to know both your strengths and weaknesses, to accept them, and to be authentic, to be yourself, without masks and pretenses. Jung's psychology emphasizes that a man who knows and understands himself can face life's challenges more effectively, handle critical situations with greater stability, and build healthier relationships. Self-confidence, according to Jung, is not superficial. It is not about how others see you. It is about how you see yourself, and whether you are capable of living a life aligned with your own values. But today we live in a world that constantly disrupts this inner balance. Media, social networks, work, and family expectations put enormous pressure on men. Constant comparison with others, the demand to always be strong, successful, resilient, and flawless. All of this leads to feelings of insecurity, frustration, and a gradual loss of self-confidence. Modern men are bombarded with images of an ideal life that almost no one can achieve, and many don't realize that their inner sense of failure is not a reflection of reality. It's the result of unrealistic expectations imposed by society. That is why it's so important to look at why self-confidence decreases, and most importantly, how it can be rebuilt, using Jung's psychology and his principles of self-knowledge and integration of the inner parts of the personality. Point 1. Inner conflicts and the shadow. One of the most important concepts in Jungian psychology is the idea of the shadow. The shadow is that part of the personality we tend to ignore or suppress. It contains our weaknesses, repressed emotions, frustrations, unconscious behavior patterns, and sometimes even aspects of ourselves we find uncomfortable or unacceptable. Every man has it, and ignoring the shadow is one of the main reasons why self-confidence crumbles. Men are often raised with the belief that they must always be strong, tough, and in control. Tears, fear, insecurity, or vulnerability are seen as signs of weakness. As a result, part of their personality, the shadow, remains unexplored and pushed aside. But what happens when these emotions and aspects are ignored? They become an unconscious force that undermines self-confidence. Instead of feeling in control and strong, a man feels frustration, inner tension, or a sense of inadequacy, often without knowing why. The very first step toward true inner strength is to recognize and accept your shadow. That means being willing to face your weaknesses, to admit mistakes, and to explore emotions you were once taught to suppress. Accepting the shadow is not weakness. On the contrary, it is one of the deepest forms of courage, and it is the key to authentic self-confidence. A practical example: a man who never admits to himself that he feels anger or jealousy may unconsciously express those emotions destructively through constant conflict with his partner, through bursts of aggression, or by shutting down emotionally. But once he is willing to acknowledge these emotions, reflect on them, and find constructive ways to work with them, he gains not only greater control over his life, but also a deeper, genuine sense of confidence. Accepting the shadow is therefore the first and most essential step. Only when a man knows and embraces all parts of his personality, both the dark and the light, can he begin to build inner strength that does not depend on the judgment of others, but grows from his own authentic self. Point 2. The gap between the ideal and reality. One of the most common reasons men lose confidence is the pressure of the so-called perfect man. Society, media, and social networks constantly present us with idealized images of men: strong, successful, charismatic, wealthy, and perfectly attractive. These ideals are often unrealistic, but men naturally compare themselves to them. The result is an inner conflict. Real life rarely matches this image of perfection. When a man tries to always be strong, flawless, and without weaknesses, he often fails at what truly matters: authenticity and self-acceptance. The feeling of inadequacy that arises from this gap slowly undermines his confidence and robs him of inner peace and certainty. Jung's solution lies in the process of individuation. Individuation is the journey of becoming who we truly are, discovering our own values, limitations, strengths, and weaknesses, and finding an authentic path through life. It is not about imitating the models presented by society or the media, but about deeply knowing one's own self. In practice, this means that a man learns to accept his limits, to stop comparing himself with others, and to focus instead on his own growth. For example, instead of desperately tracking who is richer or more successful, he redirects his energy toward meaningful goals, improving his relationships, or developing his abilities in alignment with his own values. When a man embraces his limits and lives authentically, his confidence is no longer dependent on external factors. It becomes an inner certainty that survives criticism, comparison, and social pressure. This is a strength that does not need anyone else's approval, because it flows from within, from the truth of who he really is. Point 3. Emotional suppression and lack of self-reflection. Another key reason men lose confidence is the suppression of emotions. From childhood, boys are often told, "Don't cry," "Don't show weakness," or "Don't be afraid." On the surface, this may look like strength, but in reality, it weakens the inner self. Suppressed emotions pile up over time and gradually turn into unconscious patterns that erode self-confidence, damage relationships, and cloud decision-making. Jung emphasized that emotions are not weakness. They are valuable information about our inner state. When a man is willing to recognize, reflect on, and process them, he strengthens his inner integrity and builds authentic self-confidence. Emotions then become a tool, not a threat. Here are a few practical techniques that can help. Journaling, writing down thoughts, feelings, and reactions to better understand oneself and one's motivations. Introspective meditation, consciously exploring emotions and analyzing what truly influences our behavior. Inner dialogue, having a conversation with oneself, examining hidden aspects, and integrating even uncomfortable feelings into conscious awareness. When a man regularly works through his emotions and engages in self-reflection, he gains true inner strength. Confidence is no longer just a reflection of how others see him or how well his career or relationships are going. It becomes a steady inner certainty, rooted in deep self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Point 4. Relationships and social influences. Our self-confidence is closely connected to the people we spend time with and the environment we create around ourselves. Toxic friendships, negative family patterns, or media pressure can subtly, yet very effectively, undermine a strong sense of self. Modern men often don't realize how deeply they are influenced by those around them. Some friends may unconsciously reinforce their doubts, while media and social networks constantly display unrealistic ideals they can't help but compare themselves to. Carl Jung pointed out that relationships act as mirrors of our inner world. What we perceive in others often reflects our own beliefs and inner settings. If we are surrounded by people who constantly criticize us, diminish our value, or reinforce negative patterns, our confidence gradually fades. On the other hand, authentic and supportive relationships can strengthen us. They highlight our strengths, encourage growth, and provide a safe space to express emotions and vulnerability. Practical advice: be selective about the people you spend time with. Look for those who inspire you, support you, and respect your boundaries. Educate yourself about media influence. Recognize when social media or films create unrealistic expectations. Actively limit toxic influences. This doesn't mean avoiding all criticism, but consciously choosing who has influence over your thoughts and emotions. Example: a man who spent much of his time with people who constantly criticized his choices and achievements gradually began to unconsciously devalue himself. But when he started spending more time with supportive friends who encouraged his growth and respected his boundaries, his self-confidence stabilized and his inner certainty grew stronger. Point 5. Practical steps to rebuild confidence. So how can a man gradually rebuild and strengthen his self-confidence? Jungian psychology offers clear strategies: integration of the shadow and authenticity. Accept all parts of yourself, not only the strong ones, but also the weak. Stop hiding behind masks and be authentic. This creates a stable foundation of inner peace and certainty. Small challenges and gradual practice, confidence is built step by step. Small goals and challenges, like trying out new social situations, presenting ideas, or facing fears, provide evidence of one's own ability and strengthen inner power. Creating meaningful goals. Focus on your own values, not on what society or the media dictate. A man who knows what truly matters to him gains a sense of control over his life and his worth. Mindset. Mistakes as opportunities. Jung teaches us to see failure as experience, not as proof of weakness. Every mistake is an opportunity for growth and learning, which gradually builds resilience and confidence. Example: a man who long felt incapable of speaking in public set himself a small goal to share his opinion in a small group. Step by step, he took on bigger challenges until he was able to lead presentations and debates. Each small step gave him a sense of inner strength, which became the foundation of genuine self-confidence. In summary, the combination of an authentic approach to oneself, consciously overcoming small challenges, focusing on personal values, and learning from mistakes creates lasting and stable inner strength, one that is not dependent on external conditions. A man gains genuine confidence that can withstand social pressure, media influence, and life's inevitable setbacks. Today we went through the main reasons why men often lose confidence: inner conflicts with the shadow side, the pressure of unrealistic ideals, emotional suppression, and lack of self-reflection, as well as the impact of toxic relationships and social influences. We also explored practical ways to rebuild confidence, from embracing the shadow and living authentically, to gradually facing challenges, setting meaningful goals, working with emotions, and choosing supportive relationships. Jungian psychology reminds us that true inner strength and confidence do not come from external achievements or the approval of others, but from knowing and accepting ourselves. What may appear as weakness can actually become a source of strength if we are willing to face it and integrate it into our lives. I want to encourage you to reflect. Where in your life do you feel the strongest pressure? Is it in work, relationships, appearance, or your own inner expectations? And now ask yourself, how can you start today to build your inner strength and authentic confidence? Even the smallest step towards self-discovery and self-acceptance matters and strengthens your resilience. If you found this topic meaningful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be searching for a path to genuine confidence. And don't forget, in the next video, we'll dive into Jung's perspective on relationships and the male psyche to understand how healthy connections can further support your inner strength and stability.